Press the Let's Go Live button. You know what that means. We've got to wait for the stream to fire up all across the fruited plain of the internet. Before we go ahead and get started, got to make sure those tubes are working. Sometimes the tubes are a little bit frozen out there. And it looks like we got Telegrams alive. We got YouTube's up. Let's check in on our Rumble friends. Let's say hello to locals. What's going on, my friends? Let's make sure this is all fired up and working. Looks good over there. Tremendous news. That means we can go ahead and get started. So, my goodness, let's do it already, shall we? Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live, the show that spotlights misconduct involving police, prosecutors, and politicians. My name is Robert Gouveia. I am a criminal defense attorney, and today we're talking about Donald Trump's trial, day 2. This is the civil trial brought by the plaintiff, E. Jean Carroll, aka Miss Bergdorf here. We know her well because we covered the entire first trial, where we saw the charade unfold. And Donald Trump was, of course, found liable for the old DJ Diddles era charge. And so we'll talk about that because there is a lot of conversation about what happened the last time and why we are here. Yesterday, we had a great question that kind of broke my brain for a minute, which was about why are we in federal court? And I had to go back and really reassemble the timeline because it was a little bit of trickery. Remember, there were some weird things going on. But the original complaint, so the original filing was back in 2019 before the Adult Survivors Act was passed, which was in May 2022. That was after Trump was out of office. And so we're going to reconnect this entire timeline because there's a good reason why we're in federal court, and it has to do with removal. But I wanted to reiterate this point on the Adult Survivor Act. The idea here being that they passed this law, this legislation, so that this new type of claim could be created. In other words, so that E. Jean Carroll could do exactly what she's doing here. And so we're going to talk about it, and we're going to refresh our recollection as to when Roberta Kaplan, E. Jean Carroll's lawyer, when she actually filed the amendment into the claim. So we'll take a look at that. Mitt Romney's being very dishonest. I'm very irritated about this, and I think he should be sued for defamation. We'll see. Now, he is saying that Donald Trump was convicted, that he arred a woman. Okay. He arred a woman is what Mitt Romney said. Wrong, Mitt. The jury found not. There was no R, even under the preponderance of the evidence standard, which is quite low. So why is Romney and all his ilk out there? Why are they out there perpetuating this disgusting lie when that has never happened? So that you can see acquitted, not even acquitted. This was a civil trial. Couldn't even find him guilty of the R, even by preponderance of the evidence. Not even guilty, not even liable, okay? Why? Because she is totally lacking in credibility. Then we're going to talk about the jurors because we have some updates on the jurors. This woman was there. She's going to say, look, sounds like all these jurors really want to be on this trial. And you can imagine why. There's going to be a lot of probably book deals coming out afterwards. So we got that. Then we're going to go into the actual meat and potatoes of the events from Inner City Press. Our friend Matthew Russell Lee is there in the Southern District of New York, and he has been reporting like a madman. You know, just, I don't know, he types so fast, it's amazing. So he is just transcribing everything that's happening in real time. You can certainly follow him at Inner City Press. We're going to go through that and see what happened on day 2. And it was a spicy day today. E. Jean Carroll testified, and Donald Trump got scolded by the judge. Judge said, if you keep up your commentary there, Trump, I'm going to throw you out of my courtroom. And evidently Trump said, I love that, verbatim. So we'll go through it, see what he said. We also have our friend Amuse, who's reminding us that a lot of this originated from a scene from Law and Order. And we're going to learn about E. Jean Carroll's house as well. So this is a video of E. Jean Carroll's house. You can see this is she calls it the mouse house in the woods because she lives with mice, I guess, and other creatures in the forest or something. So we're going to go through that, see what she's all about, and, you know, hopefully somebody can provide her some help. But we're going to talk about that. Then we've got an update on Fani Willis. Fani got a letter from Congress, this one from Representative Cory Mills in Florida. he sent this one actually over to the council of Georgia. And so they're going to reach out to, I'm sure, Fani at some point. So the inquiry is heating up, even hotter than the alleged love affair between these two, Fani and Nathan. And we learned from another investigation, so local news dug this up. Apparently, in a prior investigation, Nathan Wade deleted notes or didn't even have notes from a prior investigation. Like, people are dropping dead all over the place in Fulton County jails because they're so mismanaged. And so Fani's like, at some point, Nathan Wade was going to investigate all this. And apparently he didn't take any notes. I'm sure he took the money, but not the notes. And so they dug that up, and people are asking, why did she appoint him? He's so unqualified. What gives? Well, we know Fani really enjoyed the Willis by Wade. You know what I'm saying? That's the reason. So we'll talk all about that. And then we got this update on the Twitter case, the old Twitter case, currently inherited, purchased, and re-envisioned by Elon. Remember, before Elon, pre-Elon, we saw that Twitter disclosed the DMs of Donald Trump's Twitter account over to the government, to the federal government. And now Twitter was appealing some of this. And so this is the Court of Appeals ruling from the DC Circuit. And it is related to the X files. The Twitter files that were sent over from Donald Trump's account in particular. And so we're going to read that. Now, what ultimately happened is the court didn't rule saying that what happened was bad. They just didn't grant a rehearing. And so we're actually going to read from the dissent because the dissent was upset about this. They said that Jack Smith is really, something else. So we'll go through all that. We're going to hear from Liz Cheney, who also showed up in church to lecture people about Trump, I guess. Is this like a new thing? Did I miss the memo? What's happening? So she shows up in church to give her little political speech. Maybe they think it immunizes them from critique. Okay. And then we're going to hear from Kamala. Oh, gosh. Now she says, I'm scared as heck. Trump might win. So we'll see what she says and wrap it up. All that before we get into your comments and your questions and all your feedback on the day. Today, this morning, we got three good segments today. This morning, we had a great stream. A members only stream over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. And, when we're over there, we debrief some other activities on the day. There's other, things to talk about. In particular, this morning, we talked about Vivek and about this Trump-Vivek little bromance that seems like it's brewing over there. And so this is what it looks like on Locals. We went through that full thing this morning, and we had a great stream. You can see there was a bunch of activity there. Let's see. We were also talking about some Joe Biden stuff. We were also, I don't know what else we were talking about. Oh, yeah, the Chevron case. Elizabeth Prelogar was over there. And so, of course, hanging out with the Locals fam there. That was this morning. If you want to come and join us over there, it's watchingthewatchers.locals.com is the place to go, and you can join in on the fun. We also do after parties here after this show is over. We'll be heading over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We'll also see our membos on the Saturday streams. So become a membo. It's a great way to support the show, to meet other people, and to stay engaged with everything that's happening. Watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Also, our website, robertgovea.com, is where you can go to get the daily reports right here on that tab, but also sign up for our newsletter by clicking that big blue button. And then you can join in and get all of these reports delivered to your inbox after the show is over. The next morning, we send them all over. And that way you can stay apprised of all the things that are happening. robertgovea.com. Links are in the description below. And we'd love to see you on the newsletter. Okay, so let's get into it, because we've got a day 2 to jump into, starting now. Trump trial, day 2. E. Jean Carroll, the plaintiff, is taking the stand today, and Judge Kaplan, who we know from the first trial that we covered here, very ornery towards Trump and the Trump defense, scolded Donald Trump today. He said, sir, pipe down or I'm throwing you out of my courtroom. And Trump had some reaction to that. We'll get into all of it. Now, before we do, I want to lay some more foundation. We're, of course, going to go over to our X script thread, courtesy of Inner City Press, who's there reporting. Matthew Russell Lee, shout out to him. But before we dive into the full thread and unpack everything that happened, including E. Jean Carroll's testimony, because she was on the stand today, there was this great question about why we're here. How did we get here? You probably have heard me say something like, well, they created a law to enable this type of claim to move forward. And that law was the Adult Survivor Act. This is Governor Kathy Hochul from New York. We're in the state of New York, the SDNY Southern District of New York. And this law was passed in May 2022. And actually, you can still go over there and see why they passed it. Basically, what this did is it created a window for anybody who is a victim of abuse to, even if the case is very old, it opened up a window for them to make new claims. The Adult Survivors Act will empower survivors of offenses that occurred when they were over the age of 18. They opened up a 1-year window that's going to begin 6 months from the signing and will allow survivors to sue regardless of the statute of limitations. Okay, so even though E. Jean Carroll's case is from the mid-90s, we don't even have a hard year on that because she's like, well, I don't know, someday. They opened this up. And of course, she filed and made an amendment right after the fact. So for many survivors, it takes years to come to term law. Now, they already extended the statute of limitations for these claims to 20 years, but that's only for new cases. And again, this is civil, okay? This is not criminal. This just allows somebody who's as off as E. Jean Carroll to just bring a claim. And if someone will fund it, that's the problem, right? It's very expensive to bring a claim. You have to really have some money. Like if you say somebody did something to you and you want to sue them in civil court, well, very expensive. Thousands, tens of thousands, maybe more than that, especially if it's going to be litigated for years. So E. Jean has a backer. It's called Reid Hoffman, the guy who apparently, according to, I guess, his funding, he cares about abuse survivors, right? That's why he's helping E. Jean Carroll. Well, then why was he palling around with Jeffrey Epstein, flying on his planes and going to Epstein Island? Why? I don't know. Because he cares about survivors of sexual abuse? I don't think so. So, okay, that's him now, right? It's a political vendetta. This whole thing was plaintiff shopping. They went and found a plaintiff. Then they forum shopped. Perfect. We got a forum, got the law passed, and now they filed a claim. Now, what happened before this even passed, the original complaint was a defamation charge. Right now, that's what this whole thing was about before they amended the claim. So in 2019, when Trump was still the president, obviously, they filed this claim. And you can see this got dropped November 4th, 2019. And these are all the types of claims that are being filed in the run-up to the election. So boom, they targeted this one, E. Jean Carroll. Now at this time, they did not have the Adult Survivors Act, which allowed them to then add in the DJ Diddles, the era claim, and the old hibbity-dibbity, the hibbity-dibbity. They added those two claims after the fact, but they wanted to get this assault story out before the election anyways. So they filed this in 2019 so that defamation, right? E. Jean Carroll wrote this piece that she was attacked in Bergdorf. She got Bergdorfed in a dressing room. Nobody remembers. And she doesn't even have the year of the date located for us, but okay. So they publish it. It baits Trump. He responds. This woman's a demented liar. And guess what happens? They hit him with defamation. Okay, it's just a trap. So they lay it down. Suddenly then, that's in 2019, Trump is still the president. So the reason why this was removed, okay, it's a great question. If this is state law, why are we in federal court? Well, it's because the government removed the case. When Donald Trump was the president, the government said, all right, look, we have authority now to handle this type of stuff on behalf of the president. And so they filed its civil procedure type of stuff. When the president is facing a tort claim, they removed it up to the federal courts, and then that's where they are. So now you can see from here, right after they passed the Adult Survivors Act, and right after that time window elapsed, and as soon as she could file it, boom, Roberta Kaplan for E. Jean Carroll sends this letter into the judge, September 20th, right? Just do the math on that. So boom, it's now ripe. She says, here's a brief update on the discovery. She sends a letter and also informing the court of a case that plaintiff E. Jean, that she plans to file against Trump pursuant to, there it is, bingo, the New York Adult Survivors Act, as soon as the statute authorizes us to do so on November 24, 2022, right? We're ready to go. Boom! Soon as they can, they're going to add those charges, and that's going to be the game. Right now, Trump is going to now face the R word, a civil claim and a DJ Diddles claim for, grabbing her by the purse, allegedly, in a Bergdorf. So that all happens. Okay, that's why we're here. And I want to dispel of this disgusting defamatory rumor that is coming from the likes of people like Mitt Romney and many people on the left who are dishonest. Unless I'm missing a case, this is not true. Now, Manu Raju from CNN, he said that he just spoke to Romney. He said, hey, I just asked Mitt Romney about Iowa caucus entrance polls, showing that a majority of GOP caucus goers didn't believe that Joe Biden was elected legitimately because he's not. And here's what Romney said. I think a lot of people in this country are out of touch with reality. Rude. And will accept anything that Donald Trump tells them. Here's what he said. You had a jury that said that Donald Trump arred a woman. Really? I'm not aware of one. We've been covering a lot of Trump trials. Is there one of those? A jury said that? Wow. I'd like to see the record, Mitt. And that doesn't seem to be moving the needle. There's a lot of things about today's electorate that I have a hard time understanding. Well, Mitt, it's probably because you're misinformed or just an idiot. Because we understand this a lot better than you do, buddy boy. Here's the evidence to support that. This is the original verdict form, Mitt. And I'm tired of this stupid claim from these people. Here is the first trial verdict form, submitted May 9, 2023. Not even a year ago. Mitt, 4 pages. Here's what it says. Southern District of New York. Same judge, same parties. E. Jean Carroll suing Trump, the defendant. And what do we have here? The verdict form that went to a jury, and this is by a preponderance of the evidence, okay? So this is not a conviction. This is a civil case. This is not beyond a reasonable doubt like criminal law. So this whole thing's a joke anyways, okay? Preponderance of the evidence that you arred Miss Carroll when there was no criminal trial at all. So this standard, by the way, is just 51%. It's called preponderance of the evidence. If it's more likely than not, you put all this stuff on a scale and you just weigh it out. 51%. So guess what, Mitt? The jury found no. Did Miss Carroll, by a preponderance of the evidence, prove that Trump arred Miss Carroll? No. That's what the jury said. So why is Mitt so stupid that he can't read this? I don't know. Now, what you'll see here is for the second charge, did Trump abuse Miss Carroll? Okay, this is the DJ Diddles. Error. And what that means is that, I think personally, this came from the grab him by the purse comment, right? Because Trump said, well, you grab him by the purse sometimes, whatever. And that was locker room talk. But they submitted this and said, yeah, okay, Trump abused her. All right. Again, by preponderance of the evidence, there was no criminal case brought here. Why not? Well, because they would have had to actually investigate it. They would have had to actually go and do an exam of Miss Carroll. If she called the police, they would have had to go and, impound evidence if she had called the police or if they're even reported it to the police. Never happened. There is no evidence. And so the jury obviously didn't believe Miss Carroll because this was a major part of their case. Okay, they were hitting this one hard all day. They were saying, yes, he did. Yes, the P in the V. Okay, you get the vernacular. And it happened without her consent. Okay, she said, yes, he tacked me, the whole thing. Okay, Eugene, really? Opening, closings, the whole thing. Jury said, no, he didn't. So you are not credible. But it's New York, and they still felt bad for this crazy person. And so what they did is they just said, okay, look, he said that I grabbed them by their purses when I'm a major Hollywood celebrity. And so they just split the difference. Okay. They said, obviously this is not true. She's nuts. But here they gave it to him or to her. Okay. We hate Trump in here. And by the way, just to show you how stupid and insane this verdict is, the actual injuries for the DJ Diddles, okay, which is a physical touch, which to a normal jury, and I would imagine anybody, would be the most offensive thing ever, right? Like that's the actual harm there. Somebody touched your no-no place. Okay, we learned this like when you're young. You're supposed to. Don't touch them in the no-no place. Like that is that total violation, isn't it? So what did they give her for that? $2 million. Wow, for that quick little DJ session. But guess what they got more of? She got a much bigger offense, a much bigger verdict. $3 million, $1 million and $1.7 million for reputation and reputation repair, and another $280,000 in punitive damages. Okay, so $3 million. Okay, $2.9 million is what they've got. That is a lot. $3 million for the defamation, right? So the fact that Trump said she's a liar is worse than touching her no-no place, all right, which feels a little bit off to me. But I don't know. Maybe that's just a thing with weird artists. I don't know. So this is something that the actual jury signed off on. Mitt, 1037, and the rest of them, they all noted this down. So why are people like Mitt Romney lying about this statement? No, they did not. A jury did not find him guilty of R-ing anybody. It was a grab him by the purse situation, which again, you would obviously not condone, but you cannot trust this. This is not a criminal case. This is a preponderance of the evidence case. And this claim was allowed to be concocted by the Adult Abuse Survivors Act, which they passed specifically with Trump in mind, and which Roberta Kaplan was waiting spring-loaded to pop up out of her seat with her court filings as soon as the docket allowed it. So it's one thing after another, but these people are dishonest. So, and they will put it back on the rest of us, like we're misinformed. You know, we're out of touch with reality. Is this guy nuts? I just showed him the form. Maybe I should send one to his office. Have you seen this, idiot? And he will accept anything that Trump tells them. No, we just question everything. Mitt, you're lying to us. You had a jury that said Donald Trump R-ed a woman. Liar. That's a defamatory statement. Someone should sue. Trump should sue Mitt Romney for actual malice. He knows better. He's a lawyer. He went to Harvard or something like that. So, and that doesn't seem to be moving the needle. He really outed himself there, didn't he? Yeah, so you're making up fake claims and you're lying about it. Why? To move the needle. Why? Because the electorate doesn't believe you? Because they're much smarter than buying your garbage anymore and you don't control the informational supply chains so that you can force feed them your garbage? There's a lot of things about today's electorates that I have a hard time understanding. Yeah, like we read documents, idiot. All right, so that's Mitt Romney. I can't believe I voted for that loser. And he is making up lies out there. Glad we corrected the record on that. Now, this is another woman who was there yesterday. We left off on the show with a full jury panel and opening arguments. And here's what she tells us a little bit about the jury before we jump into the day's activities from our friend Inner City Press on X. Here he is.
So, Chris, we just finished with the selection of a jury of 9 people. One of the things that struck me about the jurors who were just selected is how non-specific they were about their media consumption. Judge Luke Kaplan, who's presiding over this trial, has a battery of routine questions that he asks to prospective jurors. And the last one is, where do you get your news from? And what I saw today suggests to me that all of the people who were assembled in the courtroom, irrespective of what political biases they may have brought in the door, they all wanted to be here because when they were asked, where do you get your news from? Most of them said things like, I'm news agnostic, or I get it from the internet. Yeah, right. I see it on my phone apps. Please.
Those are all the MSNBC viewers. Okay. They were probably a lot smarter than the Trump people yesterday. Okay. All the Trumpers were like, yeah, I refuse that. Yeah. I think that the 2020 election was rigged. Yeah. I think that what's happening here is a farce. The judge is like, oh, perfect. Thank you. You're gone. Okay, perfect. You're gone. And you're gone. Okay, everyone else on the jury panel, all the lefties who have no integrity, they just say, oh, no, Donald who? Who? Oh, no, I don't watch Jen Psaki's #1 show on MSNBC called Inside Jen Psaki. Rachel Maddow, what? No. Judge is like, so you're very fair and impartial. They're like, yes. As you know, you can see all their pronouns hanging from their earlobes. So that's what's going on. Now, here's this wrapped up.
This is like Apple News. Very few of the prospective jurors answered those questions with specific outlets like the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal. That suggested to me you got a number of people back there that are highly motivated to serve in this trial for whatever reasons, but they didn't want to leave, which is not what you usually see. You usually see lots of people who don't want to be in jury service. They'll come up with any excuse possible. That's not what I saw here today.
Of course not, man. This is a big trial, another one, and they're trying to concoct their scheme to make sure Trump and other jerks like Mitt Romney can continue to castigate Trump by making up fake evidence, by fake stories, by fake dispositions, just making up stuff, right? So that's what's going to be happening. Now, this is over from our friend. Let's jump right into the trial thread from Inner City Press and jump into day 2. Here's where it starts. Day 2 of the Carroll versus Trump trial. We're here for defamation and damages. Inner City Press is reporting at Inner City Press on the X platform. Of course, Matthew Russell Lee also has an excellent Substack. You can find all the links on his X account. He's there in court. He was there yesterday, tweeting the thread as it happens. The activities start. Everyone's seated around the courtroom waiting. There's a hustle and bustle in the air. Trump is in session. Door slams open. Pfft. All rise. Oh, it's the judge. All right, get up. Put your phone down. All right, please be seated. Judge Kaplan comes. He sits at the bench. He's looking a little ornery today, as per usual. He says, all right, before we begin today, everyone, I want to let you know that the reason I'm late, the reason for this delay was caused by a transportation problem. Don't know what that means. Probably traffic, Judge. Did you oversleep today? Now, before the jury comes in, he says, I have the following questions of law. Now, I heard your opening yesterday, Miss Abba, and I've got a question for you. You brought up mitigation of damages. And remember, Alina did say that. She's like, E. Jean, says she's been damaged by this, so-called defamatory statement. That's not true. She's on the media every day talking about it, puffing herself up. I was attacked in Bergdorf by Trump. So if she's out there perpetuating that story, she is literally exposing herself to the criticism that she's receiving that she says is so damaging. And so she's saying you need to mitigate your damages. You need to stop going out there and trying to put yourself in the limelight. If this whole story is so harmful to you, E. Jean, why do you talk about it every 2 seconds? So the judge says, Alina, question for you. Is mitigation of damages an affirmative defense? Is it waived? So affirmative defenses are defenses that you admit happened, but you're admitting something happened, but you were privileged to do it, in other words. So think of self-defense as an affirmative defense. So let's say you're charged with assault. Okay, you pop somebody in the nose at a bar somewhere. Happens all the time. Shouldn't, ideally, but it does. So you pop someone in the nose. You are charged with the crime for assault. That dude's nose is broken. Nice hit. And you say, yeah, I popped him in the nose all right. I gave him a nice clock. You say, wow, you hit him. So you actually meet the elements of assault. This, doing this, and this, and whatever your state is. And you're admitting that, but you were privileged to actually make the hit. Why? Because of self-defense. It's the affirmative defense that privileges you to make that hit. But you got to admit that you actually did the hit. So he's asking that. Is this an affirmative defense? Are you saying that Trump did defame her and there's nothing else to talk about here? And are you waiving that? And so Alina's getting all these questions. What? He says, is the defense even applicable to a defamation case? And if so, I got a question for you. Which side has the burden of proof? And what must be proved to satisfy that burden? And he says, here's some of the questions I was able to dig up. He says, there's a New York Court of Appeals case called that one in Kane. He says, why don't you look that up? And he says, and Alina says, well, Your Honor, okay, well, it sounds like you're making some rulings here. Alina says, okay, Your Honor, well, good morning to you. Nice to see you. I would like to address what Your Honor was recommending in writing overnight. I mean, you're proposing an instruction, right? You're proposing a jury instruction. Judge says, I want briefs on Friday before 4 p.m. I mean, this is fine. That's okay. Now, Alba says, Your Honor, before we begin and the jury comes back out, my client, President Trump, and I, we wish to point out Miss Carroll can sit in front of the jurors every single day here, okay? She's here. It looks good for the jury that she's here. She's very attentive. But you're making my client, Donald Trump, the president. He has to choose between attending his mother-in-law's funeral and coming to this. Judge says, I've already ruled on that, Alina. Sit down. Alina says, Your Honor, I don't like to be spoken to that way. So can you please refrain from that? I'm trying to be cordial here. I'm asking for an adjournment for a funeral. Denied. Sit down. Bring in the jury, says the judge. Roberta Kaplan, jury comes in. Everybody stands up, looks at him. Hey, everybody, nice to see you. Great to see you. Jury comes in. They're all seated. Judge says, Ms. Kaplan, you're up. Roberta, E. Jean's lawyer. Your Honor, plaintiff calls E. Jean Carroll. E. Jean Carroll walks up. You know her. Don't know what she's wearing. She sits down, stands up. You promise to tell the truth, huh? I do. Ms. Kaplan says, E. Jean, where do you live? She says, I live in upstate New York. I live in the mountains, in a small cabin. And why are you here, Miss Carroll? Donald Trump abused me, and then defamed me, and then shattered my reputation. Has Mr. Trump continued to lie about you, E. Jean? He lied on Sunday, and he lied again on yesterday. Alina says, objection, Your Honor. First of all, that's non-responsive, and that's not even at issue here, okay? Yesterday's comments, all the Truth Social posts, whatever he said, that's not why we're here in trial. So whatever, that's irrelevant. And the judge says, well, that's certainly relevant to damages. They can punish him for that. He's not getting the point. He keeps talking about her. So they can just keep that in their minds as they assess how much he owes her. Overruled, Alina. Now, here's what Ms. Kaplan asks. Ms. Carroll, how was your reputation shattered? Now, we're going to come back to that question because I want to share with you, before we talk about her reputation and how it was shattered, I'd like to rewind back to this small cabin in the woods, in the mountains. Let's see what this person lives in, shall we? Here is an excerpt from an L video that was posted here by our friend Stu Peters. And he is articulating what we all believe, that this woman is a little bit off, and that this is what it looks like, her small cabin in the woods.
I call it the mouse house because some very distinguished mice live here. Kahneman lives in the kitchen, Tversky lives in the bedroom. This is my shed. And on that side are the books that most influenced me growing up. On the door are the lists of my dogs: Marky, Fortuna de la Spunky, Heidi, Tits, Bloody, and Hepburn. The streams and the rivers were dry, and it so horrified me that I came out and started painting the rocks blue to indicate that there was once a river here. And then after I got done painting the rocks, I just sort of walked over here and then did that tree and then did that tree and then I did this tree. And then pretty soon I'd done this whole forest. Oh my God! What's the best piece of advice I've ever given? What a horrible question to ask an advice column. Oh my God! Hang on. Eat, drink, and be merry. That's it. That's my advice.
Okay, so yeah, she's so spunky and free. What a wild spirit she is. She's an artist out there in the woods. And they just parade that around, right? Like, wow, okay, that's pretty wild. Now, I think, a lot of people might say that there's something clinically wrong with that person, but, this is America. She's free to do whatever she wants, paint all the trees in the world. That's fine. But do we think that you're a credible person when it comes to allegations from 30 years ago when you have basically a shed that looks like something bad happens in it with the words blood and other things on there? You're kind of a stranger, right? Strange person. So this is what we're talking about. Almost insane, but you can be the judge of it. So that's her reputation, right? That's the reputation that she has built up that has been shattered, right? So here's Roberta Kaplan. How was your reputation shattered, E. Jean? She says, well, yesterday on Twitter, it's called X now. Objection on behalf of Elon. Yesterday on X, I saw, hey, lady, you're a fraud. Well, previously, I was a columnist. Now I'm known as a whack job. Did you watch we just watched the video that you've, I think, been known as that for a while. Now, people don't write to an advice columnist that's being attacked like this. All right. Ms. Kaplan says, all right, E. Jean, in the first case that we were here, what were your claims? She says, assault and defamation. And when was the assault? She says 1996. And I think we had some questions about that date. Now, how long did the trial last? 2 weeks. And who cross-examined you? I think she made up that date. Until the trial, we didn't know it. I think that was the thing. It was like a back and forth and some depositions. There were some questions about it, and then they pinned it down because they needed to. It's really hard to make the allegation when you don't have a date. So I was kind of waiting for an objection there, but apparently we didn't get one. Now, how long did the trial last? Okay, for a full-on assault case. 2 weeks. And who cross-examined you? Joe Tacopina. Objection. Judge sustains it. Miss Carroll, where did you grow up? She says, Indiana. And my mother was a volunteer for the Republican Party. Objection, relevance. Judge says, no, background's fine. Alina says, Judge, you ruled, no politics. He says, well, that's fair enough. Okay, objection sustained. Don't bring up the Republican stuff. If we can't talk about it, they can't talk about it. And that is her, like my mom was a Republican. That's why you can trust me to belittle Trump, to make up stuff about him. So Ms. Kaplan says, E. Jean, how did your parents raise you? She says, well, it was this very small schoolhouse. They had 2 rules, smile and look on the bright side. And I wanted to be a writer. Where'd you go to college? Indiana University. I was a cheerleader. I was nominated for a beauty pageant. Objection. Who said that? This is not a tag team. Who's making those objections over there? One of Trump's lawyers said me. I don't know what the ruling was. Roberta continues. She says, and E. Jean, how did you become a writer? She says, well, after 20 years of negativity, I got my first piece accepted at age 46. Until then, I taught the gym in Idaho. And I was found in the slush pile at Esquire. Then other doors opened, and I wrote for Rolling Stone and New York. Did you move to New York City? In 1980 or 1981, I said, I love it here, and I stayed. And how'd you become an advice columnist? Well, Elle gave me a column in 1993. People would ask questions, and my answers were published. It was called Ask E. Jean. What is this photo, Miss Carroll? Well, this is me in a loosely tied tie, December 1995. They put it up on the screen. Now, what kind of questions did you get to your little advice column? She says, well, the comedy and the drama of life. Now, mostly, how do I get my husband to take my showers? And how do I get my wife to let me back in bed and off the couch? I had 80% women and 20% men. I broke with the past, I was all about taking action. I'd like to lead an adventurous life. It was lighthearted, but also deeply serious, and I had a TV show too. When was that? 1994 to 1996. And then the channel I was on became MSNBC. My channel was even started by Roger Ailes. And did you appear on other TV shows, E. Jean? Yes, I did. Yeah. The GMA, the Bill Maher show, Anderson Cooper, the shows that were on every day. I could be slotted in for 4 minutes or so. And how often were you on TV? Often. Abba says, objection, that's too broad. And how about most recently? Have you been on TV? Judge probably overruled her. And, or maybe, I don't know. And how about most recently? Today's show I did. Weekly from 2015, or he said, maybe, expand on that. So to the Today Show, weekly from 2015 to 2016 on once a week. Thank you. E. Jean, have you written books? She says, yes, I have. 5 of them. I wrote a bio on Hunter Thompson. I wrote another book of essays. I wrote a memoir. She's not giving the titles on those. She wrote, you said this, Roberta says, you wrote, this is, quote, female difficulties. Is this right? Forgive me, but it looks a little dated. Is that right? She says, yeah, it's a little dated. It's from 1983. She says, well, put up the Hunter S. Thompson biography. And she said, well, tell me about this one. Well, he's the astonishing journalist. I wrote that between 1991 and 1992. It was published in 1993. It was extremely well reviewed. The reviewers were all journalists and they all loved Hunter. And what about this book? Well, it's about what women think. Alina says, objection, that's vague. What women think? Judge scolds her. Miss Abba, when you speak in this courtroom or any other courtroom, you'll stand up here. Oh, gosh, fine. All right, get up, Judge. I got to stand up for you. All right. Carroll says, women were very blunt in Alabama and Arkansas and Ohio, and they were thrilled to talk to a journalist like me. When did you start writing that book? 2017, but it was published in 2019. Was Donald Trump initially on your list for this story? No, but I was overwhelmed at the time. Well, what did you say about Trump in that book when you got to him? Well, in that book, Carroll says, I wrote that we met outside of Bergdorf's. He asked me to help buy a gift, and so we went to the lingerie department. Miss Abba's like squirming in her seat. Judge says, Miss Abba? She says, objection. This has already been determined. We've already gone through this. He says, yes, let's move on. You already ruled about it. We don't need to go back. And so Alina's trying to keep the jury from getting into the details of the Bergdorf. Right? The judge has found he's already liable for that. It's already done. Or the jury found he's already for the assault. Okay, not the R, but the assault was there. So she's just trying to, we don't need to get back into all that. You already found it, enough. Already determined. So Ms. Kaplan goes back. How many pages in your book were about Mr. Trump? She says 9 pages. Ms. Kaplan, may I have my glasses? They're in my purse. Good luck. And she goes, yeah, I'll grab them for you. Where are they? She says, good luck finding them in that bag. Abba says, the question comes back. Now, I object. This goes to the underlying facts. There are 9 pages. The facts talk about them. They want to put the pages up on the screen or whatever. And Roberta says, well, we can redact those pages. He says, first of all, Trump's had this for a long time. So we can redact it more. But here's the picture on the screen. Judge says, I'm advised that the version on the screen is not redacted. And Ms. Kaplan says, well, this is what Mr. Trump reacted to. This is what he was like commenting on. So that's why we're trying to show this. Judge said, Miss Abba, what about that? Abba says the president denied an allegation on the White House lawn from a reporter. That was his statement. Someone asked him and he responded. We can't ask her about the other men that she also claimed assaulted her. And judge says, well, I don't get what you said. I don't even know what you're talking about, but I'm going to sustain it anyways. And Alina says, move to strike. I want to move to strike that. To strike what? Madeo says, Miss Kaplan read the document that's on the screen. Judge Kaplan says, Mr. Madeo, and I guess shut him up. So I guess that's the end of that. So the thing is on the screen. And Ms. Kaplan asks E. Jean, and these are pages from her book. Was an excerpt published, Miss Carroll? She says, yeah, there was an excerpt from my book. It was published June 21st, 2019 in New York Magazine. What time of day was that? She says, well, the New York Times was going to publish an article about the book, and that caused the New York Magazine to rush it out on Friday in the afternoon. And so they jumped the gun. Now, did the excerpt include the assault by Donald Trump? Yes, it did. Now, yesterday, Ms. Abba talked about this 5-hour interval. Now, did the excerpt include a denial? Yes, it did. It included a denial from the White House. And Abba says, Your Honor, she is waiving the ability for me to cross-examine her. Ms. Carroll continues, had you told anyone publicly the story about Mr. Trump before? No, not publicly. Did it factor in that he was president? Yes, I went ahead and did it anyways, even though he was the president. But did you expect him to respond? Well, I did, but I thought he'd say that it was consensual. I thought Trump would just say, yeah, we did the old hibbity-dibbity in there. But is that what he did, Miss Carroll? No, he didn't. He said my false accusation damaged the real victims of assault, and that is a lie. Alina says, objection. On what ground, Alina? One word. She's not a lawyer. Overruled. I said one word. You gave me 5. Overruled. Roberta says, Miss Jean, I know this is hard for you. Have you paid dearly for this? Just about as dearly as it is possible to pay. Miss Carroll, what is this document? That's an announcement by the office of the press secretary. Your Honor, we move to admit. Judge says received. Carroll says he said that numerous women had paid to make false accusations about him and that these women did very well. Objection, judge says, overruled. Carroll says it was untrue. I was not paid. But what about paying dearly? Well, he said people like me should tread carefully. Objection, overruled. And Ms. Carroll, what is the context of these statements by Mr. Trump? Well, he was on his way to the helicopter and he was answering questions from journalists. And what's this report, Ms. Carroll, that we see here from the article magazine called The Hill? Well, it was partially about me. Alina says, Your Honor, objection. This is not a part of the case. Overruled. Jurors, this statement is not a part of the application for damages. So just keep that in mind. So Roberta says, well, what's new here in this article? It said, in this article, it said, I'm not his type. He said, I'm not his type, meaning I'm too ugly. Objection, speculation. You don't know what Trump's type is or whether he thinks you're too ugly. Judge says overruled. You can cross-examine her on that if you think she's too ugly or whatever her's going on there. Carroll says the president called me a liar 26 times. It ended the world that I'd been living in, and now I'm in a new world. What happened next, Miss Carroll? I was attacked on Twitter, on Facebook. It was a whole new world. And what is this here, Miss Carroll? It's a Facebook chat directed to me. Do you know who sent this to you? No, but it was on June 21st, 2019 at 6:09 Universal Time. And what is this, Miss Carroll? It's a message on Facebook, Monday, June 24th, 2019. And what does this person say to you on Facebook? Well, he talked about how ashamed I should be, saying I made it harder for true victims of abuse. Did Donald Trump say that to you? Yes, he did. Not in the Facebook message, but it's Trump. Trump said something like that. And so this random Facebook person also sends her a message. And she's like, well, that's the heckler's veto, right? Trump said something, someone else said something, so Trump's responsible for that. Now, Miss Carroll, How often do you receive these messages? Sometimes hundreds a day. And what are the themes that you get in these messages? That you're a liar, that you hurt victims, that you're ugly. Those are usually the first three. And what are your motivations for this? Objection, Your Honor. We were ordered not to discuss motivations. Sidebar. They put the whisper on. Can't hear anything. They walk back to their benches, to their desks. Ms. Kaplan continues. All right, let's start with the messages on Facebook calling you a liar. They put it up on the screen. This is a Facebook chat, she says. Now, she says she was not going to ask me for any advice. And this one asks you how much George Soros paid you. And who is he? A rich old man? Did George Soros pay you? No. Do you know anyone at the DNC? No. Abba says, I'm going to be addressing this on cross. Kaplan says, we'll see. I don't need announcements. Says, I make the rulings here. Abba says, I was just, sit down. Abba stands up. I don't need the announcements. I make the rulings. I was just, sit down. He shuts her up. Okay. Now, how many requests for advice did you get per month? Maybe 200 a month for advice. Now, only 8. Well, it's because we know who you are. We've seen your cabin in the woods with mice in the kitchen. Roberta says, is this a good time for a morning break? They say yes, 15 minutes. We're here. Thanks to Inner City Press, Matthew Russell Lee reporting, and we fast forward, and the jury is now out. Now, Sean Crowley, Miss Carroll's other attorney, tells the judge, Judge, Miss Abba has now twice mentioned other men. Now she's brought up this Miss Carroll is receiving funding for this case. That was improper. And Mr. Trump has been seated over there loudly saying, wow, she got her memory back. Trump's like, wow, she got her memory back. Where'd that come from? Because it was just installed. They just installed it. Oh, all these dates, it's all perfect. Wow, weird. Where'd that come from? So, Miss Abba, anything from you? Alina says, Your Honor, they asked her if she had funding. She said no. We know that she had funding. It came from Reid Hoffman, the guy who hung out with Jeffrey Epstein a lot. Well, what about Mr. Trump being vocal in the presence of the jury? What do you say about that, Alina? He's your client. And we asked about funding from George Soros too, Your Honor, but not for this lawsuit. And Alina says, it's Reid Hoffman. Kaplan says, well, I'll consider what you said. Now, the Trump vocalization issue was not addressed, but they leave the bench. So that's done. Now they're back from their 15 minutes. Judge Kaplan comes back. All right. Now, before the jury comes in, he says, I'm just going to ask that Mr. Trump, that you take special care to lower his voice when conferring with counsel so that the jury doesn't overhear it. Jury now entering. Trump leans over directly to Miss Abba's ear and says, can you hear me? Gotcha. Okay, so Miss Carroll continues. Hey, Miss Carroll's back. Carroll's back on the stand. Remember, you're under oath. The other. Miss Carroll, what is this? She said, this is my tweet before Mr. Trump's statement. My tweet was about taking a road trip, and this reply hits all the high spots. This one, somebody responded to her on Twitter. This one says, I'm psychologically messed up. Well, and that's ugly. And that I'm ugly and I should avoid a mirror. I mean, I know I'm old, but it's a little mean, but yeah. Did any of the messages you received accuse you of being promiscuous? Yes. This email was also sent to me and to my publisher and to my agent. It made me feel horrible. Did you receive even more upsetting messages, E. Jean? They threatened to eliminate me, which is a crime, by the way, right? A lot of these are crimes. Like, these are harassment. You can be charged with harassment, threatening. Those are all actual criminal charges. So I don't know if these people were prosecuted or not, but we'll see. How many of these people threaten violence? Hundreds. That's definitely a crime. Now, what was the first time that this happened to you? So were all of those reported, I would guess? Now, around 11:30 that night, I was in a cheap hotel on 10th Ave. my usual. And the room was small. There was no desk, just a board that you flap down. And I went to Twitter for breaking news. And on Twitter, I saw, "You lying scumbag." So I went to my Ask E. Jean website looking for support, and I went there, and there was a lovely email saying, "You go, girl." But the next one I thought I was going to get shot, and I couldn't get the curtain closed fast enough. There was a message with a photo of a woman who had obviously been eliminated. There was blood on her neck. Objection, inflammatory, sustained. So they don't go into that. Blood all over. Okay. I hit delete. I couldn't help myself. So then I went back to Twitter, where I guess the other abuse was. She's like, how else can I be abused? Did you sleep a lot that night, Miss Carroll? No, because of the window. I didn't sleep until 6 or 7 in the morning. Miss Carroll, what is this one? Oh, this is a Facebook message that someone sent to me. They said, "Dishonest, treasonous lemmings." And it describes how I should be eliminated. And Miss Carroll, prior to 2019, had any reader ever accused you of being someone who likes children or someone who worships Satan and Nazis? No. And what's this? Well, this was a Facebook message that I got a day after last year's trial. They said that they wanted me eliminated. And apparently there's some sort of message on the screen that says, "No lube." Yikes. Carroll, I'm sorry that people in the courtroom has to see these images. Now she's sobbing. Okay, she's sobbing. "Oh, I got bad comments." Now, some of these were posted on public media sites, but there were also threats of violence that were sent to you privately, right? Yes. Again, all illegal. Why didn't you delete your social media accounts, E. Jean? Well, my favorite journalists are on social media. To not be on it as a writer would be oblivion. Did you ever come to regret coming forward about Mr. Trump in light of these messages? She says, "Only momentarily. I'm glad I took action." And what steps have you taken to protect yourself? She says, "I let my pit bull off his leash and I put in an electronic fence. And I bought bullets for the gun that I inherited from my father. I keep it by my bed." Oh gosh. Oh, this woman has a gun? Wow. And what about driving? "I pay attention to who's behind me. When I run errands, I look to see who's around me. And at the grocery store, I had a filled cart and I see a man in a brown shirt." I don't know what happened. But back at my home, I realized I left my groceries back at the store. Do you have personal security with you at this trial? Yes, I do. Would you like more? I can't afford it. That's why I need Trump's millions. So she goes to the grocery store, has a panic attack because she saw some dude in a brown shirt, freaks out, leaves her groceries at the store, goes home. Okay. I can't afford more security. Now, did you tell your friends about these threats? No. What can they do? Why would I tell them? I like to stay cheery. Oh, so you told nobody about these threats? Nice. Now, who is Lisa Birnbach? She says, she's my friend of more than 30 years. And what did you tell her the night in the small hotel room? What did you tell her? She said that I was fine as wine. That I was fine as wine. Now, what's this? Oh, those are my texts with Carol Martin and her daughter. Who's Carol Martin? She says she's a breakthrough black newswoman. And you told her that there were no security concerns. Was that true? She says, well, I said that because I didn't want them to worry. And so what's happening now is Miss Kaplan is doing what's called drawing the sting. You draw the sting out. These are really bad facts for her because this is obviously idiotic. She's going to be telling everybody that she was petrified on X. She thought someone was going to come crashing through her window. She's under attack, but she talks to two people the same night she's in the small hotel room and tells both of them she's fine. So that sounds like she was fine. And so we have to get that out. Roberta needs to draw that out because if she lets the other side do it, it's going to look dishonest to the jury. So Roberta says, did you promote your book? Okay, switching gears, sorry. Did you promote your book when that came out? I did. Yeah, I did. I did 4 interviews and I did 4 or 5 podcasts. And what did you talk about? Well, the journalists, they all wanted to hear about President Trump. Glad she used the appropriate title for him. I saw that the book was not selling. Wow, the book was not selling, so I tried to talk about it. That's interesting. That's a real interesting statement. Now, were you buoyant? Now, you said that you were buoyant, as you said it in this interview with Kaiser Weir. Is that right? She says, well, that's the public, Eugene. Okay, when I'm out there in public, I say I'm great. What was this talking tour that you were on? Well, there are many tours in New York, you know, Edgar Allan Poe. Judge Kaplan says, well, what about this tour? Gets her on track. Well, it was in front of the Trump Tower. Oh, so you did a talking tour, and you did the one right in front of Trump Tower, which is her, apparently. This is her in front of Trump. This is a guy with a Trump mask on. That's E. Jean Carroll. He says it was in front of Trump Tower. This is from Inner City Press's booklet. Matthew Russell Lee has booklets on Amazon. So look those up and buy one, my friends. Man, this guy's great. So they say, Roberta, when did you decide to sue? Okay, so she's like now out in front of Trump, right? Seeking media attention for this, a talking tour. When did you decide to sue? Carroll says, well, I was at a party with George Conway, who's a rabid anti-Trumper. George Conway took her aside. He had an iPad. He explained the difference to me between a criminal case and a civil case. And he took me through the steps. George Conway says, okay, got it, perfect. I've got this psychopath person. Let me tell her that she's got this claim that I can squeeze out of her and we can prosecute Trump. He says, okay, look, a criminal case is different than a civil case. Trump's not going to be charged with a crime. We're just going to say this. And he sells her on the whole thing. This is E. Jean admitting this. She wasn't going to sue until George Conway slotted in there and sold her on it. He said he could suggest a good attorney. And a day later, he sent me a recommendation. Roberta Kaplan says, who did he send you a recommendation for? For yourself. Robbie Kaplan. That's Roberta. You. And what is this? She puts up on the screen. Well, this is a photo, says E. Jean. A photo of us waiting to go up to your office to listen to our argument at the Second Circuit Court of Appeals. And what's this? Carroll says, well, that's my personal website. It says on here, you're posting an article about your case. Why are you posting that on your own website? Well, she says Donald Trump keeps lying about me, and I want people to know what's happening. And what's this? She says, that's me on Rachel Maddow. I'm talking all over the place. Now, during the first trial, was there a hullabaloo getting in and out of the courthouse? She says, yeah, there was. A lot of people want to hear from her. It was said yesterday that you paid for a documentary to be made. Objection, on what ground? Abba says, that's not what I said. It misrepresents that. She rephrases. Did you ever pay to have a documentary made? No. And what is this? This is something that Donald Trump said on Truth Social. By then, I thought I was rebuilding. I'd started a new Substack. But what did you do? This was a statement I made about the last trial. Objection, this is the last trial, Judge. So there are no damages being sought for this, but you may answer. The statement by the president, E. Jean says, called me a hoax. Says, I thought I'd get my reputation back after winning the first trial, but then Donald Trump went on TV. Objection, this is not part of the speech. This is not part of the case. He says, no speeches, Alina, just one word, overruled. We got interrupted mid-answer. Carroll, one more time. Says, Trump lied again. Right after the trial, he went on CNN's town hall and he lied again. And what is this, E. Jean? This is a truth post about me. It's a video posted by Trump. Abba says, we will be. Judge cuts her off. No announcements. She says, objection. The whole video should be played. Kaplan says, no one's proposed anything else. Sit down. This is the transcript. Ms. Kaplan's like, smirking at Alina. Yeah. What was this posted on Truth Social? That was the day after the trial. Roberta says, let's play it. Trump is there on the video. He says, I have no idea who this woman is. Okay, this is the greatest witch hunt of all time. You know the Trump routine. Roberta continues. Who's the woman Mr. Trump was referring to? She says, me. And Donald Trump was raising money. Objection, Your Honor. This is complete speculation. Kaplan says, yeah, okay. The answer is stricken. Now let's turn to the town hall. Kaplan says, the judge Kaplan. Okay, there's Roberta Kaplan, the plaintiff attorney for E. Jean Carroll, and there's Judge Kaplan, no relation between the two. Judge says, okay, Roberta, how much more? She says 20 minutes. Okay, we're going to break here. Pee break. 1:45, we'll come back. Jury leaves. They all walk out of there. Once again, Sean Crowley for E. Jean says, Your Honor, Donald Trump has been making statements that we can hear at our table. He said it really is a con job. He said it is a witch hunt. Can you please remind him? Judge scolds Trump, and the defense says, okay, Mr. Trump has the right to be present here, but that right can be forfeited if he is disruptive, which has been reported to me. And if he disregards court orders, I will eliminate him. He turns to Mr. Trump specifically. Mr. Trump, I hope I don't have to exclude you from the trial. I understand you are eager for me to do that. Control yourself. They take their break, and we're back. Judge says, I understand there's an application here today. It's about to get spicy. Trump's lawyer, Madeo, says, Your Honor, we do have a motion. We move for your recusal. We know who Sean Crowley is seated over there at E. Jean's table. Sean Crowley is a former law clerk of yours, Judge Kaplan, and you accepted her representation. Oh, so Sean might be female. So it's a, 3 female trifecta over there. So this is an atmosphere of hostility. Your former law clerk is representing the plaintiff in your courtroom. That's number one. And there's also an hostility atmosphere in this courtroom because you told Alina to sit her butt down. Judge Kaplan says, denied. Sean, you're doing a great job, sweetheart. Love you. Keep up the great work. Bring the jury in. Roberta Kaplan says, okay, in these 4 years, E. Jean, there have been times that you felt okay. Is that fair? She says, oh yeah, I felt buoyant. Now I want to get to the CNN town hall. And this disc, did you sign this disc? Yes, I did. I followed along. Yes, the transcript is accurate. Objection, Your Honor. 1 lawyer per witness, Madeo, and you're not it. So you don't get to make objections. Only 1 lawyer per witness. Abba says, what rule is that? I'm the only one who can object. Judge says, I ordered that this morning. 1 lawyer per witness. You all don't get to tag team objections. So that's it. 1 at a time. Madeo, you're not up. Alina, that's it. So Kaplan says, okay, your little conference and the moment is over. And I can't hear you anyways. So Roberta says, okay, we're going to come back to this. I don't want to waste the time of the jury. But they play the video. And Trump is there. He's in the Hawkeye state. Trump says, Bergdorf Goodman? It's all made up. Ms. Kaplan says, Roberta, what happened after Mr. Trump made those statements? After he said Bergdorf, I Bergdorfed her in a Goodman's? What? No, never happened. It's all made up. What happened after those statements, E. Jean? Well, there was a flurry of attacks. A flurry? Have you gotten used to these attacks? I will never get used to attacks like that. But people did congratulate you, didn't they? I mean, and there were positive media articles about you, weren't there? I mean, doesn't that repair your reputation? No. Well, aren't you better known now? But I am, but only by the people who think I'm a liar. Alina, objection, Your Honor. She's speaking about what other people think. Overruled. When did you stop writing your L column, E. Jean? I stopped the end of 2019. But do you still publish a column? Yes, I do. It's on Substack. Pardon my ignorance, says Roberta. What is Substack? People can pay to read it. I have 21,000 of them. 1,800 of them are paid. Those are good numbers. Now, have your Twitter followers increased since 2019? Yes. Do you make any money from your followers on Twitter? No. Yes, you do. Because that's how you advertise your Substack. Hello. Can you still freelance? The assignments are all about Donald Trump, nothing else. Right, Donald Trump has made this person's entire career. How much do you earn? About objection, specify the year. She says, well, that's a subject for cross-examination. Now, how much do you make versus 2023? She says, 50,000 versus 2023. I mean, 500,000, I mean $500. What? What the heck is this sentence? 50,000 versus in 2023, 500,000. I mean, $500. I don't know what that answer was. We'll see if we get anything on cross. Did you post on Twitter, Ms. Carroll? Yes, I did. Dog videos and a Christmas message wishing people care and love. Did you receive the replies? Scroll through them and people will get a sense. There's one post. Someone says, shut up, you chattering skeleton. Now, let me show you this. Objection on what grounds? It's prejudicial. Well, Kaplan says it's all evidence is prejudicial against the party it's offered against. Roberta says, Miss Carroll, who is this from? She says, someone called Nebraska Cornhusker. He writes, I am a trashy person and Trump will get back at me. Objection overruled. Did he post about you yesterday? So I've been told. On True Social. This was posted as we were in the courtroom yesterday. I had no idea who this woman was, but she sent, quote, pure fiction. Pure fiction. No further questions, says Roberta Kaplan. And that's the end of the direct exam. Now, Alina is up. Cross-examination? Abba says, give me a moment, please, Your Honor. Now she's up at the podium. Miss Carroll, says Alina, you used to live in Montana, didn't you? Yes. It's fair to say that Montana was boring to you. Well, Montana's never boring. You were deposed twice by me. Let's look. Do you recall saying you and your first husband, do you recall saying the spark was gone? You said, I came to New York to interview Franz Leibowitz. Judge Kaplan says, can I get the transcript? Roberta says, Your Honor, I don't see the difference. Abba says, may I proceed? Can I go? No. She just said something and you haven't provided the transcript. Miss Abba, we're going to do it my way in this courtroom, and that's how it's going to be. You tell me the line number and I read it. Then we go from there. She said, I was reading. Judge Kaplan says, we're going to take a recess. You're going to provide me with, don't read it out loud. You're going to tell me what line numbers, Miss Abba. Page 14, 6 through 8. What are you doing offering into evidence? I'm offering it as impeachment, says Abba. Well, those are two different things. She said two different things about Montana. She said it's great, and before she said it's not boring. That's your difference? I can ask another question, Judge. That would be a good idea, says the judge. The heck is going on? This judge is just destroying Alina, like not even allowing her to ask questions. Get it? Look at this, like he's directly interfering. He's playing interference, just mucking it up. I'll just move on, Judge. Abba says, Miss Carroll, you were a regular at this place called Elaine's, right? Yes. It's hard to get into it, isn't it? No, it's not that hard. Judge says, it doesn't exist anymore. That's why it's hard to get into. Thank you for that, Judge. Why was it hard to get seated in the front? Oh, that's because Elaine would choose who got to get seated in the front. And you were a regular and you saw Mario Puzo there. I saw Woody Allen. And you were in the first row. I was the fourth table down from the front row. You were there with Esquire? Yes. And in 1979, you were making, what, $4,000 a piece? Kaplan says, a piece of what? Per article, Judge. Didn't you say in 1979 you made $29,000? Eugene says, yeah, that's about right. And it would be bigger to be on a cover of a story, wouldn't it? If you're on the cover story. She says, well, I'd rather be on the inside with a story. Okay, but how about a cover story? She says, I'd consider writing. And Roberta says, Your Honor, can we have a sidebar, please? Judge Kaplan says, yeah, perfect. Come on up here. What do you want? Whispered sidebar. Psh, what's going on? They're back at their tables. Mrs. Abba continues with her cross-examination. When you were on the cover of New York Magazine, how much was the dress you were wearing? Objection! Sustained. Don't ask her about her dresses. Abba says, Miss Carroll, what's the most amount of money you've ever made annually? She says $400,000. And that's a lot in today's dollars, right? Objection. Judge says, you got to be more specific than that. Would you agree that $400,000 in 1995 is probably about double that today? Yeah, maybe I would. You were on TV too, weren't you? Through 1997? Yeah. And you were also on SNL? Yeah. Walk us through your books. Carroll says, Female Difficulties. Okay, but what's the whole title on that one? She says, Sorority Sisters, Rodeo Queens, Frigid Women, Smut Stars, and Other Modern Girls. Okay, that's the full title. Female Difficulties, Sorority Sisters, Rodeo Queens, Frigid Women, Smut Stars, and Other Modern Girls. What's a rodeo queen? Says Alina. I'm confused. You have to ride and rope, out in the West. It's difficult. What about frigid women? Who are those? Objection. Sustained. What about smut stars? Who is that? Oh, that's an old term for pornography. And what did you first tell me? Objection, says Roberta. I have no idea what she's doing. Kaplan says, my order. I said, say how you are using the transcripts. Okay, Abba says, she said that she was not afraid of this stuff. Roberta, objection, sustained. Okay, Alina says, how did your book sell? Well, it sold about 10,000 copies. And what was the next book? That was a biography of Hunter S. Thompson. And how about the next? I wrote 2 advice books. One called A Dog in Heat is a Hot Dog. How many copies of that book did you sell? Well, it's still selling today. How much in 2023? I don't know. That means not many. And how about this one? You said how a smart woman can land her dream man in 6 weeks. You wrote that, didn't you? Yeah. Did it do well? Yeah, it did well. I still get royalties from that one. And then Nina Garcia took over at Elle. Is that right? Objection, beyond the scope. Abba continues. And was your salary lowered after this? Says yes. All magazine advertising was down. And how was your salary changed? Well, it was halved. It was basically halved. In 2018, it went from $120,000 to 60 grand. Woo! Man, and she's got bills to pay. Was that a low point for your career? She says it was. It was a loss being halved. Yeah. So did you go on TV to promote your newest book? She says, well, it was my duty as a writer. Did you do that on your previous books? I went on the early show when I wrote Mr. Right. And so I went on more TV for that book. Oh, so you did go TV, but was that primetime TV? No. And how many men are in What Do We Need Men For, this book that you wrote? She says 60 people, 60 dudes in there. How many times is the word Trump in your book? 1 time. And how many times did you say the word Trump on TV? Well, I didn't like to say it. Usually it was the interviewer who said it, but you did mention it often, didn't you? I did it here because that's the topic. On TV, they choose the topic. Did you mention any of the other men? Well, several were done in a humorous way. What do you mean by that? Well, I tried to get the other stories in. The other stories of other men, but nobody cared about those other men. You went public with your allegations in June 2000. She wants to say, I'm not a one-trick pony, man. I'm a writer. Like, listen to these other stories. I try to get them in. She was marketing herself on the back of this fake Trump allegation. So you went public with your allegations then in June 2019, right? The cut of the New York Magazine? Yes, I did. And the president's response was 5 hours after the publication of the cut, right? E. Jean says, the New York Magazine, it did go online and they reached out to the White House and we never planned to do it on Friday. It's not a good day to release those things on Fridays, but the New York Times had it and so we had to go quickly. Do you know, Miss Carroll, if there was a communications team at the White House? No, I don't know. Well, I represent to you that it does. Judge Kaplan says, you're not representing anything here, Alina, or you'll be a witness. Okay, Alina says, did you sue over the White House statement? No. But you're suing over the June 21, 2019 statement, right? Yes. But you got online responses before Trump said anything, right? Correct. So you got responses. Now we're going to causation. So people are already blasting you before Trump even made a statement, like within that 5-hour window. Story went live. People started blasting you, calling you a liar because this is all made up. Then Trump said the thing, and the same thing happened. So Trump can't be deemed to be the cause, right? 5 hours? You got online and Trump didn't say anything for 5 hours, right? Right. Many people called you a liar before President Trump made his statement. Is that true? Carroll's lawyer says she's not asking a question. I wasn't finished. Roberta? It says you're a pathetic old hag. And judge says that's not an evidence. She says, well, I'm trying to get it in here. No, we are not going to read out loud each document, not yet in evidence. We're going to take a break right here, says the judge. We're going to wait till 3:30. You're going to refresh your memory, Alina, about how you get a document in my courtroom. Alina's like, gosh. Judge takes another pee break and we're back. Judge Kaplan says, Miss Abba can't use documents that are not in evidence, so get them into evidence first. Jury enters. Abba continues. E. Jean's back on the stand. Ms. Carroll, did you receive tweets in the 5 hours before President Trump spoke? I hadn't seen them. Were you tagged? Judge says, don't get into the content. So the judge is really, really wanting to limit this because this is pretty bad. This goes to causation. If the jury knows that Trump didn't cause some of the bad things, then maybe they won't blame Trump for it. Don't get into the content. And so suddenly, Ms. Carroll, who's otherwise obsessed with what's being spoken about with her, on the biggest day and the biggest story of the day, she drops it. She doesn't see any of the comments on X, on Twitter, right until the moment when Trump says something. Then suddenly she sees it all. Do you believe that for a minute? Alina says, don't get into the content. Says, okay, well, then how do you suggest I proceed, Judge? Everything that I do here, you're saying is not proper. So what do you want me to say? He says, show it to her. Ask her if she recognizes it. Okay, fine. You want to just go to the nuts and bolts? Do you recognize this? Yes. She said, and then the judge scolds her. It's not marked. It should be marked. Do it appropriately, he scolds her. Do it overnight. They need to be marked, says the judge, one after another. So she goes back. She marks it as an exhibit. Oh my gosh. Okay, it's marked. Okay, marked 1. Alina says to her, did you anticipate the public would immediately believe your allegations? Sidebar, says the judge, cuts her off. And they're back. So Alina says, okay, E. Jean. Now, you deleted the messages, okay? And then you deleted the trash so we can't see anything of in your records. E. Jean says, well, I periodically delete the trash. You know, I have an old computer. When did you stop deleting these things? I stopped deleting them during the second lawsuit, the one that went on in May, the one that we covered here. Now, you said that you received death threats daily, but then you deleted all of them up until the trial? Can you explain what you mean? Kaplan says, Judge, explain what she means by what? When did you stop deleting death threats? Well, I had not received how many there were. I had not received how many there were. Okay, but did you receive a subpoena for all of your so-called death threats? Yes. Did you know you had a discovery obligation to provide us with those death threats? She says, well, they were just replies, you know, they were just slime. So I didn't think that they were important. Well, what about messages in your inbox? Did you delete those? No. So you have the death threats then. You have those in your inbox. I deleted them. So you asked and answered, Your Honor. Abba says, this is a very important question. And Carroll's lawyer says, I also object to the commentary too. Carroll says, I may have deleted some emails too. I'm not sure. So all of these dangerous death threats that are so damaging and horrific are gone. They're not even in evidence anymore. So did you give them to your lawyers? Do we have those? No. Why not? Well, I don't want to upset them. You don't want to upset your own lawyers. Okay. Do you keep the supporting emails, the people who love you? Yes, I tend to delete questions that I know I won't use, but I have an entire label for supportive messages. Do you control your email, Eugene? Yeah. So only you deleted the evidence of what you're claiming here today, right? Only you deleted these? Yes. Ms. Carroll, are you aware that it's illegal to delete evidence? Objection. Abba says, that's fine. I move for a mistrial, Your Honor. She says evidence in this trial has been deleted. Judge Kaplan says, denied, Miss Abba, and the jury will disregard everything Miss Abba just said. Whoo! Abba says, Eugene, you stated you were in a cocoon of love a week after President Trump's statement. Is that true? You said you were in a cocoon of love? I did. And so it appears you weren't suffering much. Is that fair to say, in your cocoon of love? No, that's not fair. I experienced a support and a flood of slime. There was both. Both things occurred. But some was before President Trump's statement, right? It was from him. Based on what? Based on the way that they were phrased. But didn't you say some went off the social media? Well, sometimes I take a break and sometimes I come back for breaking news. And so I take a break. One can't live on Twitter alone. Now, you believe these tweets are real. You believe they're not fake. Objection sustained. Miss Carroll, Alina says, on June 22nd, Lisa Birnbach sent you a text message. Now, I offer this as defense exhibit number 11. This is already admitted? Yes, it is. Well, then you don't have to introduce it. You said you were confused, Judge. That's why I'm responding to you. Like the judge is beating her up and she's like accommodating him, right? She's like trying to, like she's being ultra clear and, and he's like scolding her. He's like mocking her for doing the things that he's implying she do. So Carroll says, well, on that day, I did sleep until noon. Okay, so it's not accurate. Objection sustained. You said you were glad you were not living in Montana anymore. Is that right? If you say so. Well, don't take my word for it. It's in the transcripts. Here it is. You also said you attracted media exposure after you came forward with these allegations against Trump, right? Yes. To promote the book, I answered about President Trump. Is he the only one you discussed? Well, it's all that I was ever asked about. Could you have mentioned others from the book? Well, I could have, but I didn't. And so if you were so damaged, why didn't you stop going on TV? Well, I did. Anderson Cooper was my last one. I was done. Did you have to accept any of these appearances that you were on? No. And didn't you testify that you don't like talking about President Trump? Objection sustained. Now let's talk about the podcast that you were on, Eugene. The Daily, All Ears, Midas Touch, Trumpcast. Yeah. Did you say Trump? Well, what does she mean? Well, she said that she didn't like saying his name. Carroll's lawyer says, what do you mean? Did you say Trump? What does she mean, Your Honor? Well, she said she doesn't like saying his name. That's a lot of appearances for someone who doesn't want to say the name Trump. Objection sustained. That's argumentative. Alina says, you don't book yourself on TV, do you? No, I don't. Who pays for the publicists that put you on TV? Objection to the form, Your Honor, sustained. Ms. Carroll, is status important to you? Yes, it is. You still want more publicity? Well, I'm pretty much done with it and with the books. Are you writing a book with Mary Trump right now? Well, she's writing the book. I'm in charge of the comments. It's Mary's money. Whose idea was that? Well, we were talking about it during the pandemic. Mary put it on Substack. Has Mary Trump sued Donald Trump? Objection sustained. Ms. Carroll, have you ever said anything you regretted on national television? Yes. Your Honor, can we have a sidebar from Roberta's table? Judge says, yeah, no problem. They're back. Abba to Carroll. Have you deleted text messages, Eugene, and not just emails? When I see threats, I delete them. Alina says, Your Honor, can we have a sidebar now? Judge says, no. Only they get sidebars. Now, Ms. Carroll, have you ever gotten into arguments with Twitter users? Possibly. But you said that you were afraid. Did you get oral threats? People left messages, and I didn't answer them. You deleted them? Well, I didn't know you could. You don't know what the police would do you? I think that those who send messages use emails that they get off Tor, and the IP address is hidden. Oh, that's pretty technical. She knows what Tor is, and their IP address is hidden. And then she deletes all the evidence. So are you afraid, which, it's like, wow, we can't see where any of this came from. There is like no trace at all. Are you afraid that they're going to come to your home? Yes, but you never called the police? Objection, argumentative. You have used the same phone for 4 years, Miss Carroll. Is that true? Yes. I want to ask you about Carroll Martin. Would you call her a confidant? Yes. But you told her that you felt safe, didn't you? I do, in New York City. So were you was lying to Carroll Martin appropriate? Because you said that you were not safe here today, but you then told Carroll Martin that you were safe. So was lying okay? Yes, it was okay. Her daughter was scared. So I said I had not received threats. So you lied when you said that there were no threats. Objection, that wasn't the testimony. E. Jean, you have a gun, you said. You inherited from your father, which is a scary thought. Do you have a license for your gun? No. Are you aware that you have to have a license? Judge Kaplan cuts her off. Don't even start in my courtroom. I don't care if she has an illegal gun. Abba says, do you have bullets for the gun? Yes. And you live in this state? Yes. So you're in active commission of a crime right now. That's good to know. Didn't you say you would advise people not to go to HR, human resources? She says, yeah, of course. HR decides cases to benefit the company. And you did a watch party with Kathy Griffin, that washed up comedian, so-called. Yeah. And Kathy Griffin, the same one that held up the severed head of Donald Trump. Remember that? Yes, that one. Miss Carroll, have you ever said that you like speaking with me? Yes. Is that at some level because you enjoy the attention? Well, I wanted people to know that women can win. I'm 80. It's not right to try to make women be quiet. Miss Carroll, but you were not quiet in the 80s, though, were you? Right. But after 25 years, you brought this suit against the sitting president. Now, you're running the repeat key a little bit too often, Miss Abba, says the judge. Abba says, thanks, Judge. E. Jean, who is George Conway? Miss Carroll says, well, he's a lawyer who does not like Donald Trump, and that's for sure. That dude is TDS madness. Abba says, has he been on TV these days? I think so. I wouldn't be surprised. The judge says, we're going to take a break now. Jury files out for the conclusion on the day. Now, as the jury leaves, Trump leaves too. He's out, but the lawyers are staying, and there may be more. But there's not. Judge Kaplan leaves without saying more. And that's day 2, my friends, courtesy of Inner City Press. Woo! That was a good one, man. That was a lot. There was a lot there from Matthew Russell Lee. Thank you, Matthew Russell Lee, my friends. Make sure you're giving him some extra love over there at Inner City Press on the X platform. If you want to read about any of this stuff, he has booklets, Trump Trial 1. If you want to get caught up on the prior trial and everything else that we talked about, go to his Amazon page, Trump Trial 1, get a copy of his booklets and follow him for his tremendous reporting. Inner City Press, Matthew Russell Lee, doing a great job. We're grateful for the reporting. And so, as you can see, my friends, there is going to be more. We're going to pick up on day 3 with cross-examination, continuing from Alina Abba against E. Jean Carroll, and we'll see what else comes after that. But we'll be here. Thank you for joining us and subscribing wherever it is you're watching this. We're going to be covering all this Trump litigation for the foreseeable future, and there's going to be a lot of it. So we'll look forward to seeing you back here. Also, don't forget to check out our website, robertgovea.com. The link is down in the description below. There you can sign up for our newsletter. We post all the PDFs on the website. We also have a newsletter that comes to your inbox every day after the show. That way you can get the latest and never miss a thing. robertgovea.com. Link is down in the description below. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for sharing this with a friend or family member. We'll see you back here on the next one. All right, my friends. Now, let's turn our attention over to what's happening in the Fani-Wade universe, because we've got some more interesting things afoot. Fani Willis is now under congressional investigation courtesy of Representative Cory Mills. He's from Florida. He sent a letter over to the general counsel in Georgia for the state bar, and they are going to be certainly receiving a lot of complaints about the alleged affair between these two Trump prosecutors, Fani Willis and Nathan Wade. We already know the story here. Nathan and Fani, they met with the White House. They met with Kamala, White House counsel. They met with the January 6th committee multiple times. They billed $1 million allegedly towards the people of Fulton County to prosecute Trump. And Nathan was apparently taking Fani on cruises using that government money, that Trump prosecution money. But there was a lot of questions about why Nathan Wade was even appointed in the first place, given the fact that he's got virtually no experience in these prosecutions. But more comes out from a local report from 11 Alive. And here's what they are telling us. This story is interesting. And then we have this pop-up here that I have to deal with. Thank you for that website. Oh my goodness, what's going on here? Here it is.
It's an attorney helping lead.
These local news websites are some of the worst in existence. But here is the story. Georgia Trump case. Special prosecutor says that Nathan Wade was connected to a prior 2020 open records controversy. Here's the backstory. Now, as special prosecutor for Fulton County, he is now under even more scrutiny. Now, records show that Nathan Wade's conduct was called into question years earlier when he admitted in open court that he, quote, destroyed the notes. Destroyed notes. Wade has gotten an increasingly bright spotlight. Oh, yeah. After Ashley Merchant, a defense attorney, filed a motion. Now, it's important to note that there was no real concrete evidence in her filing, but she says she's got it. Now, here's the background. Wade's conduct has been questioned before. Following a series of inmate deaths, okay, Fani's jurisdiction has people just dropping dead all over the place, which is not the penalty that they have been sentenced to. Okay, we still have presumption of innocence in this country. A lot of people still think that because you're in jail, that means you're suddenly guilty. No, many people have not been convicted of anything. They're just in jail pending the disposition of their case. So people are dying, and people who are sentenced to jail are usually not sentenced to death. So this is egregious. People dropping dead in their jails. So apparently what happened is there was an investigation into these open deaths. 11 Alive sought a complete criminal and internal affairs case file pertaining to the 3 Cobb County inmates who dropped dead. And there were some really I think there was one case, I might have been Fulton County, where like somebody died from bed bugs. Okay, like he was like eaten to death it was awful, horrific. Now, the Cobb County Sheriff's Office declined to release the records. This is 11 Alive digging into this some time ago, despite the fact that their attorney acknowledged that 2 of the files were previously released to members of the public. Now, they say the cases had been reopened. Okay, so in other words, they hired this guy to come in and say, we're doing an investigation. The cases are reopened, so we can't give you the records because there's nothing to conclude. This was part of a broader investigation. They got, quote, an independent law firm, right, into these inmate deaths. This is an email, according to an email from a Cobb County attorney. So guess who came in to conduct this independent investigation into dead inmates? Nathan Wade's law firm. Oh, they brought him in to conduct this third-party review. An affidavit said that the firm offered to conduct the review for free. That's interesting. Why is that? Why would a lawyer do a bunch of free work? Under Georgia law, open investigations are generally exempt from disclosure, required by the Open Records Act, so don't have to disclose anything. But 11 Alive, reporting back then, they raised questions about the authenticity of the investigation. In one filing, Sheriff Warren's lawyer wrote that over the course of about 5 months, both Nathan Wade and his law partner, the sheriff is covering up for themselves, said that they had met with numerous staff members and inmates, and they've reviewed hundreds of files. According to the document, the estimated time for the completion of the review was mid-October. So it was closed. They opened it up. They threw this guy in here, and they didn't have to disclose anything. Now, the document was filed October 9th. At a hearing 3 days later, Wade said, as of the time of the hearing, Wade is brought in. He said, I have no records of his investigation. What are your records? Do you have a report? Can you give us your notes? What do you have? 11 Alive, their attorney, they came out, Derek Bowers, shout out to Derek, and asked Nathan Wade the question. You do not have a single record in your possession that's associated with the review and the assessment that you've been engaged to undertake. Not a single record. I do not have a single record. Does your law firm? No, our law firm doesn't either. When asked about this, Wade said, well, I've created work product, just not in the form of documents, communications, or records memorializing or reflecting evidence or relating to the work. That's wild. So I guess it's all just in his brain. It's just in his brain. He just has all this work product. 11 Alive's attorney asked what that work product was. Wade said he kept it in his mind. Oh, it's filed away right in here where no one can get it, not even you. Can you print it off? Can I get it from you? Wade said, I have obviously my brainchild. What's going on in my mind about it? That's what I have. What? And so Fani appointed this dude. On the occasions when Wade did take paper notes on interviews, he says, I did take notes on my interviews, but I destroyed them. Why did you destroy your documents? He says, well, I got done with it and I destroyed it and I walked out, obviously. So in an order ruling in favor of 11 Alive, okay, so like years ago, this news site, shout out to them, they got Cobb County Sheriff to release many of the initially requested case files. Cobb County Superior Court dismissed all claims against Wade after finding there is no evidence that defendant Wade possesses any documents or other materials that are subject to the open records request. It is a cover-up of epic proportions. Even the judge is in on it, in my opinion. Well, there's nothing to release. So that's the case. Judge Poole noted that Wade had not produced any reports or other documentation, and so there's no timetable for compiling and releasing a report. Now, calls to Nathan's office were all unreturned at the time of the publication.
Information coming out tonight about a special prosecutor in the
total cover-up. People drop dead. Nobody wants to release the records. They bring this guy in. He does an investigation. They don't have to release other records because his investigation is going to be like the January 6th committee. He's going to bundle it all up. When it's done, he has no records, no one to bundle up. So there is nothing to disclose. Case closed. Investigation's over. Incredible, right? Absolutely incredible. And so what happened here? Why did Fani appoint this guy who obviously has very little prosecutorial experience, paid him more than the RICO expert when they both got hired in 2021? He was getting $250 an hour. The white guy got $150 an hour. And Fani calls everyone else racist for that. All right. So if Wade was covering this up for Fani, why was he reappointed? Was it the lover thing? Or was he doing them a favor? Was he doing Fani a favor to cover up her dead inmates? And now he's getting his payback, $1 million for the Trump money. Story gets deeper and deeper, my friends. Now, here's the next question. Why wasn't Nathan Wade referred to anybody by the state bar for deleting evidence in the investigation into dead people? Now, I don't know who these people were who died. Maybe they were forgotten about. Maybe no one files a claim on their behalf. Maybe these were vagrants. Maybe these were, again, people that nobody cares about. There are a lot of those, unfortunately. It's very, very sad. But don't they want some recourse from this? Wade's investigation was covering the whole thing up. And then Fani appointed him and paid him $1 million. So here is a congressional concern that got sent in to Georgia. You see, here's the letter. This one comes from Cory Mills, 7th District of Florida, from the Congress of the United States House of Representatives. Writes this over to the State Bar of Georgia, the licensing agency. Lawyers don't like to get complaints sent to them, to their state bar. Sending this one to the General Counsel, called Paula Friedrich. You can see Cory Mills signed off on this one down here, member of Congress from Florida. Tells us, Dear State Bar of Georgia, now I write to you about two serious problems, Fani and Wade, specifically what we've seen in the media about not only their professional conduct, but also potential criminal acts. Now, as you're aware, DAs are officers of the court, and they wield significant authority and influence. Now, their day-to-day duties can include managing generous staff prosecutors, and including picking special prosecutors and very special prosecutors to get on their team. And in certain cases, overseeing a budget of more than tens of millions of dollars. In fact, Fulton County is home to the largest DA's office in Georgia, which is why we call her Big Fanny, meaning Willis and her office possess an uncanny amount of influence over the justice system in the county. Now, all attorneys are supposed to follow high professional standards, and this is true, including government attorneys. Yes, even them. We all have to adhere to ethical standards. We go through character and fitness. You have like affirmative obligations to report stuff. The standards are so high that even the appearance, okay, it's not actual bias and actual impropriety. Like that's true, that'll do it. But even the appearance of impropriety constitutes a violation. You can't even have the appearance. So here's the background now. There are reports of an ongoing affair and an improper sexual relationship between DA Fani and Wade, widely reported. Now, if true, not only would it be extremely inappropriate for a supervisor and a subordinate to have an intimate relationship, but also we've got some additional concerns about bias, conflicts of interest, and potential kickbacks. Now, beyond the serious questions raised by the alleged relationship between Willis and Wade, Wade does not meet the criteria to prosecute a felony case. Doesn't have any experience. Now, despite this, he was appointed by his alleged mistress, DA Fani Willis, to lead the effort on an extremely high profile and politically charged case. And additionally, the payments that Wade got from Fulton County were earmarked for COVID money. And that money has been used apparently for extravagant trips, including benefiting Willis. And last but certainly not least, there have been reports that the White House was meeting with Wade, where he attended and even billed the White House for his travel. Now, I am hard-pressed to view this as anything and billed the White House for his travel. So they paid for that? Now, I'm hard-pressed to view this as anything but a direct conflict of interest and politically charged interference and collusion with the Biden White House with an ongoing investigation against Trump. Now, as you know, DAs are obligated to ensure that personal relationships and political pressures do not taint their judgments or obligations. Footnote 1, American Bar Association. However, reportedly having a relationship with Wade seems to be a textbook example of what rules are in place to prevent. Now, if these allegations are accurate, a DA appointing her married gallant as a special prosecutor to a position for which he is grossly underqualified, to which he would never have been appointed otherwise, is inappropriate. In fact, he says, I have yet to be made aware of any demonstrated evidence that the relationship has stopped. Have they even ended it? The court was never notified of the relationship prior to Wade's appointment, and to our knowledge, still has not been notified. Now, once again, under the procedural rules to which Willis is responsible to adhere to, a prosecutor must inform the staff about anything that creates potential conflicts and anything that could create the appearance of impropriety. Now, since Willis is Wade's direct supervisor, both Willis and Wade, they should have provided transparency to the court and to the American people, and especially in Georgia, who voted Willis into power if there had been an intimate relationship between them. This would have been allowed the court to make a determination about whether Wade's appointment was appropriate, which would have also mitigated any potential appearance of bias or impropriety. But instead, Willis and Wade attempted to conceal their alleged affair from this court. Now, this also appears to violate another rule that Willis is bound to uphold. Attorneys are prohibited from purposely hiding potential issues from the court. Perhaps this would explain why Wade never filed his oath of office with the court, which would have drawn even more attention to the matter. Don't want to file the oath because I know I'm violating it. Now, these apparent violations also illuminate other issues. Wade is not qualified. Why? Wade's qualifications and experience at best are questionable. At best. Now, it has been brought to our attention that Wade has never filed a federal RICO case, yet he was appointed by Willis as a special prosecutor. Now, under Fulton County's own standards, Wade does not appear to be qualified to defend anyone with RICO charges, right? Couldn't even do the public defender side. He fails to meet the criteria of trying at least 2 prior RICO cases. And in criminal defense, I was never a prosecutor because I'm not like them. But from a defense perspective, like you can't just get licensed and try a murder case. And it's like, okay, you got a second chair murder case or a couple murder, work your way up to it. This guy, a Trump case, RICO. It's kind of complicated, but you're a smart guy. You'll figure it out. Maybe take some notes this time. Now, as such, upon special qualifications, why did they appoint Wade? He has the same full power as any prosecutor. Now, why did she get to make an exception to the eligibility criteria? Now, to us, the only apparent conclusion is simple. Why? Wade's relationship with Fani gave him preferential treatment, and he appears to have violated the ethical duties as well. Now, in court filings, they say follow the money. It's alleged that Willis requested additional funding to assist with the backlog of cases in Fulton County. However, upon receipt of the funds, instead of using the money to clear the backlog, she is accused of hiring a private practice lawyer to lead a special prosecution unrelated to COVID, which is where the money came from. Now, as stated before, this is the same lawyer, Nathan Wade, who is married, with whom she reportedly was and remains in a relationship. Now, it seems that Willis not only used taxpayer dollars earmarked for another purpose, but also dispersed to Wade 78% more than other attorneys appointed to the cases. He did the math. Now, that represents an exorbitant salary for someone who has no experience with RICO. Once again, there is a clear and compelling conclusion. Wade was paid more because he was making Fani. Now, court filings also claim that Wade has been paid more than $1 million. There's also evidence that he took vacations with Willis using that money. And because of this, we are forced to ask whether Willis was comfortable paying Wade so much money to fill a role that he's not even qualified for so that they could benefit with luxurious trips all around the world. And for a salary as high as Wade's and the hours he has supposedly worked, I presume he was not working on any other cases. There's no time. Of course not. He's working on this one slowly, man. $1 million a year. Bill, baby, bill. Therefore, it seems that his taxpayer salary may have been used to benefit Willis, especially if he commingled his salary into an account with other funds. I strongly question Wade's ability to deny with absolute certainty that Willis benefit from Wade's winning and dining using the taxpayer coattails. And wrapping it up saying, additionally, members of Congress have a constitutional duty to conduct oversight of our federal funds. If Willis used funds that came from the feds for COVID relief for her paramour's salary, Congress would expect a full investigation into the litany of criminal and ethical behaviors that come from this. Cory says, our nation was founded on the steadfast tenets of liberty and justice, including fair and equal application of the law. These are crucial to ensuring the preservation of our democratic republic. Should any government official allow their thirst for power or personal gain to compromise the essence of the law, it jeopardizes the rule of the law. Now, the reports of misconduct coming out of Fulton County are grotesque. No one with that much power should even give off a scent that they are misusing it. There are checks and balances put in place to prevent situations like this. And so Cory demands from the state bar, for these reasons I ask, does the state bar board plan to open a comprehensive review of these reports of violations by Willis and Wade? Any plans, guys? Honorably, Cory Mills, member of Congress. Nice letter from Cory Mills. over to the Fani-Wade Affair ensemble, and we'll see if they do anything about it. We'll see. Now, we know we're scheduled for a hearing on this in February, and so thank you for subscribing. We're going to see what Fani Willis says in response. She's going to reply to that motion, respond to it, and we're going to see what she says. And so we'll be here continuing to cover this, my friends. Don't forget to check out our newsletter. Down in the description below, there's a link to robertgovea.com. You can sign up there. The website will also have this PDF available there. If you want to read that PDF or any others, robertgovea.com has them there available for you. And so thank you for sharing this show and for subscribing. We'll see you back here on the next one. And our last segment, my friends, which is about Jack Smith, is now here. Jack Smith gets blasted in the X-Files appeal, and it doesn't come from the full court. It actually comes from the dissent. And so, unfortunately, it's not going to be binding law, but they make a very good argument, and they point out something that is disgusting. The fact is, Jack Smith colluded with the lower-level D.C. court, Judge Beryl Howell, to get into Trump's DMs and to seize those without ever considering something called executive privilege. So they just violate the law for their own gains, and the Court of Appeals will just allow it and enable it to happen. So here's what the suit looks like, and the order from the District of Columbia, the Circuit Court of Appeals, 14 pages here. We're going to hit the highlights, but I want to share with you what's happening here. This is Twitter, X. They are the party to this. They're on appeal from the District of Columbia, and they're challenging the search warrant that came in and took all of Trump's DMs. Now, the order from the court is denying a rehearing en banc, which means the full panel of the court. So they were already denied. They said, we didn't like your denial. Can we please have the full court hear this? Full court said no. This is their ruling. The petition be denied. That's it. This is the whole thing. Upon consideration of X's motion and a rehearing and the amicus curiae brief by the Electronic Frontier Foundation and everything, all of it is denied. Womp, womp, womp. Not good. But the dissenters are very, very agitated by this. And here's what they say. This is the statement respecting denial. They say this case turned on the First Amendment and the rights of a First Amendment to a social media company. But looming in the background of all of this are consequential and novel questions about executive privilege and the balance of power between the president and the courts. Now, seeking access to Trump's X account, Jack Smith directed a search warrant at X and obtained a non-disclosure order that prevented X from informing Trump about the search. So Jack Smith goes to the judge, says, can I please have a warrant? I'd like to see his stuff, and I don't want to tell Trump about it, and I don't want you to tell Trump about it, and I don't want Twitter to tell Trump about it. So Jack Smith, what he did here, he obscured and he bypassed any assertion of executive privilege, and he dodged intentionally the careful balance that Congress struck in the Presidential Records Act. The district court, and this court permitted this arrangement without any consideration to the consequential executive privilege issues raised by this unprecedented search. The court doesn't even care. Okay, the Court of Appeals just says, whatever, it's fine. We should not have endorsed this gambit. Any court completely in the dark as to what presidential files contain is duty-bound to consider presidential privilege. Now, rather than following this established precedent, Jack Smith and Judge Beryl Howell, for the first time in American history, look at this, a court allowed access to presidential communications before any scrutiny of executive privilege. They don't care. It's just Trump. They'll just do whatever the hell they want. Now, the options at this juncture are limited since it's all done. They already got it. Once informed of the search, Trump could have intervened to protect his claim, but he could not because he didn't know. So none of these issues are even properly before the court, so we can't really address it. But nonetheless, executive privilege is vital and it's energetic to an independent presidency. And it's in Article 2. Now, while the privilege may yield to the needs of a criminal investigation, you have to balance this. But the court here permitted Jack Smith, a special prosecutor, to avoid even the assertion of executive privilege. This judge just allowed a warrant. He went and got presidential communications from a third party, and they also made it a non-disclosure, so Trump couldn't even know. He couldn't even protect his own rights. Now, because these issues are likely to recur, I write separately to explain how this decision breaks long-standing precedent and guts the constitutional protection for executive privilege. Okay, we know the backstory here. Trump, so-called, committed an insurrection. Now, as part of this investigation, special counsel got a search warrant for Trump's Twitter account. After he left office, the contents of the Twitter account were deposited in the National Archives. Now, although an executive branch agency held the account data, the special counsel admitted he did not seek the account from the archives. Jack Smith did not go to the archives. Why? Because if he went to the archives, that would trigger notice to Trump. The Presidential Records Act would require him to tell Trump. So to avoid that notice, special counsel then went to Twitter. He went to Judge Beryl Howell, got a search warrant, and then got an order from her that says Twitter would be prohibited from disclosing the warrant to anyone, even to President Trump. Twitter then had to comply, and they did. The release then included 32 direct messages that were sent by Trump. I wonder what those say. He was informed of the warrant and disclosure only months later. So they didn't even ask about those. Jack Smith was intentional and malicious in trying to bypass the procedural mechanisms. Now, the district court rejected Twitter's arguments. They said, well, it was a narrowly tailored thing, and the court reasoned that disclosing the search warrant to Trump could jeopardize the criminal investigation. They say, we don't care about that. Now, the highlight here is executive privilege. Now, while a Twitter account primarily consists of public tweets, there are private things in there. And this approach of just going in and gobbling everything up, there was no opportunity for Trump to invoke his privilege at all. He couldn't even argue it. This approach directly contravenes the principles and the procedures long used to adjudicate these claims of privilege. They give us some background. Privilege is important. Comes from a lot of case law. Now, while the privilege is not absolute, we do need to maintain it. And we've emphasized the practical reasons for this. Now, in every case involving this, he says, I find no precedent at all for what occurred here. Namely, that the court ordered a disclosure of literal presidential communications without even notice to the president and without any adjudication of privilege. Adjudication, an approval of Jack Smith's search warrant without any consideration for confidentiality, constitutes a significant departure from historical practice. Neither the district court nor this court in the Court of Appeals explained why all they have to do to bypass presidential privilege is just go get a search warrant for something else. This is an extraordinary approach, and it cannot be squared with the constitutional protections for the need for executive privilege. In every prior case, the president has been allowed to raise the claim before disclosure, in every other case, but not here. These were an end run around executive privilege. They were trying to ignore Trump's privilege, and they accomplished it. And the process also employed by the special counsel that the lower court sanctioned evades the meticulous protections that Congress put into place. The act requires notice to a former president. It's in there. After notice, then they can raise their objections. Both the Presidential Records Act and other things say before disclosure. But nonetheless, Jack Smith acknowledged deliberately circumventing the notice to the former president. He went directly to Twitter. He knew that they were going to give it to him. He knew the judge would sidestep him. And the president's information was turned over. Now, these judicial decisions do not support this. And this guy bypassed congressional protections that Congress put in place, saying the special counsel rebutted Twitter's efforts to raise privilege. Twitter tried to raise privilege. They said there's no reason to conclude that Trump would have used Twitter to carry out confidential communications. They say Trump was all public. But it's widely known that Trump used his Twitter to conduct official business. That's exactly why the contents were sent over to the National Archives. But some functions of a Twitter account, like DMs, well, they say it's entirely possible it might have contained privileged material. But this under longstanding precedent, they say Jack Smith should not have been allowed to evade that assertion, but he did. The claim from Jack flies in the face of Supreme Court and circuit precedent, saying presidents can invoke executive privilege. Now, before this case, presidential materials were presumptively privileged, even in the absence of a privilege. The presumption was limited, but here they have not overcome that. And so they say, not every wolf comes as a wolf. Perhaps the threat here was hard to spot, but nevertheless, the judicial disregard of executive privilege undermines the presidency, not just former presidents being investigated in this case. But again, this is break glass in case of emergency. They don't care. They're wrecking the justice system. They'll wreck the Supreme Court. They'll wreck the presumption of innocence. They make up statutes so that Trump can be prosecuted. It's all just there. And the Court of Appeals affirmed that. So we'll see what X does as they appeal this. But why do they do this? Because they have TDS on the brain. This is Liz Cheney, who's taking a playbook, I would say culturally appropriating Fanny's church speech. You notice this. And she showed up also to talk about Trump.
My friends, as we meet this afternoon, a great lie is doing its work, poisoning the bloodstream of our democracy. A former president refuses to acknowledge that he lost, and he has convinced millions that our elections and our democracy no longer work. He threatens the foundations of our nation and everything Dr. King persevered to save. If given the chance, this former president's allies in Congress will once again ignore the rulings of our nation's courts, the outcome of our elections, and the words of our Constitution.
Okay, who just ignored the rulings of the court that say that we've got executive privilege, presidential privilege, and that you should check with the other side before you just go gobble up someone else's evidence, your political opponent's evidence? Well, that's what their side did. And they used Liz Cheney's evidence that she gobbled up from the J6 committee to help. Now, here's our final clip from Kamala. She, of course, is having a tough time out there communicating as usual. They ask her a very simple question. Here's her response. She's scared.
And what are you going to do to stop the crazies?
I am scared as heck.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm traveling our country. You know, there's an old saying that there are only two ways to run for office. Either without an opponent or scared. So on all of those points, yes, we should all be scared.
Yeah.
Okay, so didn't answer the question because she can't. But that, my friends, is what's happening. So Jack Smith gets blasted. He absolutely bypassed the regular mechanism to go get Trump evidence because that's what they do. And the DC judges and the Circuit Court of Appeals, they all support it. They just say, no problems here. Executive privilege. Yeah, but it's Trump, though. And so we'll be here continuing to cover this, my friends. Thank you for subscribing. Thanks for checking out robertgovea.com. The link is down in the description below to sign up for our daily newsletter, to access all the PDFs. We upload them all to the website, and we'll look forward to seeing you back here on the next one. All right, my friends. That is it for us on the day. We covered some good ground, 3 amazing segments, and a full day of trial. Remember, shout out to Inner City Press for that whopper of a first segment. But now, let's hear from you. WatchingTheWatchers.locals.com. We got some amazing super chats in the house, and thank you for supporting our work here. I really do appreciate it. We got our first one here from Loranz, is our newest supporter. Welcome aboard, Loranz, and thank you for joining us on the day. We've also got Rocky Water. Cheers to Matthew Russell Lee. Guy's mental, but in a good way. Totally. He's just amazing work. Good to see you, Rocky. We got A Bad Poet says, who started the movement for adult survivor? It's a good question. I don't know who was behind that, but they got it passed. And as soon as they could, they added the allegations there. We have this one from Spuds, says, we call Kathy the Plastic Queen. I'm not sure who that is. The Plastic Queen from Spuds in the house. What's up, Spuds? We got Quarter Native says, leftist logic says, if you identify as a woman, you're a woman. By their rules in the Vanity Fair article, E. Jean says he never AR'd her. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I guess that's true. Their logic is very hard to follow, Quarter Native. It sounds like you got a better handle on it than I do. I don't know what the hell's going on with these people. And I'm sure you don't either. It's very confusing. Here we go. It's, we're in it together though. Tony Hay says from Steve. Hey, what's up, Tony Hay? Bringing in 5 membos. Steve C. Patriots coming in. Chris B. Melinda Gates is here. She got divorced, so welcome. Come on, join us. Gypsy's here. Welcome to all of you. And thank you, Tony Hay Muckets, for bringing in 5 membos in the house. Flash Rivers joining us. Says, Rob, Donald Trump absolutely must file a defamation lawsuit against Mutant Romney, alleging that Romney fabricated a narrative about the jury. He should. He got defamed. He didn't R anybody. Mitt Romney doesn't know that. He knows that. John McAllister, welcome aboard as our newest supporter, Joy. Joy, welcome aboard. And for our newest YouTube members, don't forget to grab that Telegram link. Navigate over to the community tab, scroll down, and join us on the private Telegram link. Quarter Native says E. Jean is still telling people she was AR'd. Oh, maybe that was your point. And okay, yeah, right. So that's kind of defamatory as well. Anybody who is saying that is defaming Trump, in my opinion, and he should sue every last one of them. Says, I almost forgot E. Jean admitted in Vanity Fair that she harassed multiple men, including Roger Ailes. Yes, she definitely did do that too. She's kind of a sex-obsessed person. Probably get along with Hunter great. Glocky says, okay, so it's not just Democrats you have to worry about stealing the election. This story's wild, and I wish people would look at his finances and find out if Dominion has been paying him. A lawsuit undercovers how Raffensperger tried to memory hole the election law that Trump's Georgia call was about. Ooh, I'll have to take a look at that one. Ray Ronk says, I have to give credit where it is due. The judges are not pretending to be fair and lawful. They are not afraid to show their partisanship. Not at all. Man, those federal appointments are good. Like, you can't get off for anything. And, this might be Judge Kaplan's biggest heyday of all. Biggest career of all of them. Thank you, Ray. Felix is here, says a plethora of creative writers on the worldwide interwebs for E. Jean. Yeah, well, there must be some demographic that's like, wow, she's incredible. I want to live like her. That's why Elle posted that. They're like, yeah, this is great. Be like E. Jean. Paint your trees. Here's Chris. What's up, Chris? Thank you for the dono, Chris, and thank you for being a member. I appreciate you. We've got this one, another one from Tony Hay. Bringing in 5 new membos. 24/7 Live, AZ Skies. Keith C's coming in. Joshua E. AM is in the house. What About Me? All coming in. Thanks to Tony Hay Munkets. Another one from Tony. Amazing. Good to see you. Saintly Beginning says, please do a segment on this case called Public Health Emergency Authority Act that ULC is quietly pushing to pass. No one is reporting on it. I shared links on your X post for this live episode. Awesome, Saintly. I'll take a look at it and see if it fits in with the other things that we're talking about. But thanks for the heads up on it. We got Dan O'Connell, our newest supporter. Welcome aboard, Dan O'Connell, in the house. We got Queen Bee's Art Hive, a member for 2 months. First month's the hardest. Good to see you, Queen Bees. I love y'all. Hearts and many prayers. We love you back, Queen Bees. We got this one from Glocky. Says, hey, Rob, how come someone with money of Trump doesn't hire private investigators to follow these judges, to see who they meet with and buy all their internet phone records from data brokers, see if they're getting paid? I seem to recall the feds buying people's information from data brokers and to get around having to get a warrant. That's a good question, Glocky. I think you'd probably have to talk to his defense team about that. Tara says Carroll's attorney was Amber Heard's before Elaine. 8 months, Tara. Almost 9 months to a full baby. I didn't follow any of the Amber Heard stuff, so I'm not sure about that, but that's interesting. Air Force Vet says, I know where Alina is going with her questioning. She is going after her credibility, tampering with evidence, destroying evidence, and perjury. Plus, Alina has put the word mistrial in the jury's head. Good comment from Air Force. Yeah, and she's, having a tough time with that judge. She can't even get questions in without the judge cutting her off. Knox is here. A defense attorney in Texas says, OMG, she owned that man. Not sure why he would divorce the nice wife when he had this on her. There must be even more in this mess. Yes, I see what you're saying. Yeah, there's a lot more smoke there. Glocky says, happy birthday to a legend, one of the greats, James Earl Jones. We got Knox says, no wonder he and Liz Cheney got along. They both erased evidence. Happy Wednesday, all, by the way. Happy Wednesday, Knox. This old guy says, wow, Wade just marginalized every single member of the Georgia Bar Association. He is proof positive that anyone can be an attorney in Arizona. Hey, here's one from Jigam. Says, dang, I got to cut loose here. Thank you, Jigam. Very generous dono. Says, we'll have to catch the rest of the show on the replay. Your commentaries are the best, Rob. Thanks a bunch, and have a great evening, everyone. From Jigam Gigam. And this is a magic trick. I don't know if you guys have ever seen this before. This is the type of stuff we talk about on Locals. As you can see here, look at that. Do you know how that works? Does anybody know how that works? If you want to know how that works, you're going to have to subscribe and join our Locals. Maybe I'll show you one day. Maybe. Probably not. It's magic. This one from B-Man says, I would more or less like to know what he was doing in those meetings with the Biden administration. Well, I would say colluding to prosecute Trump. Glocky says, does that congressional letter have any teeth? Do you think anything happens? Current projections have Republicans losing the House but picking up the Senate. So can this even get done in time? Well, I think that certainly a letter from Congress is going to raise some eyebrows at the state bar's office. Chubby says, okay, now we can get all of Biden's emails and texts and DMs on social media, right? If you can get a hack judge to issue a warrant, especially those under a pseudonym, right? No privilege. Thanks, shady DC courts. I know, wishful thinking. You already beat me to it. Yeah, if we had a rigged jurisdiction with a bunch of rigged judges, then maybe, yeah. Tara says, sent a link in your email, please play. I'll take a look at it, Tara. We'll see. BH says, please tell me that Trump's team is going to move to suppress the evidence. Any grounds for a mistrial on this basis? I'm sure that they will. Yeah, I'm sure that they will. I'm sure that they'll move to suppress that when it comes in at some point. We have so much more to go. Yes, I would be filing all day on that. That's evidence that they got illegally, I would say. But the court said no. But we'll see how that evidence is used and where it's used. But yes, possibly, definitely. George Praise Him says, people have the memory of a snail. I'm in my mid-40s. When I was a teenage Democrat, all we were talking about was how our vote didn't count. I was thinking about that, George. So I'm in my 38s. And when I was a teenager, I was thinking about this woman, Cindy Sheehan. Remember her? Remember she came out, no war for oil. And, she was against the Iraq war, which in turn, kind of turns out to be like the better play, obviously. But that was the Democratic Party. They were anti-war. Now they're pro-war. It's weird how much things have changed. MAGA Kitten says, rumors are anyone who has ever liked a message Trump posted or any electronic communications that included the word MAGA has been demanded by federal prosecutors. I think that was all in Jack Smith's request. Like that warrant got all of it. DMs, likes, retweets, Trump's likes, our people who like Trump, all of it. Wonder what they need that for, to make a list. Here, Knox sent this one in, a link about Trump accuser E. Jean Carroll's Adult Survivor Act. Thanks for the links, Knox. We got Object Class Keeter says, I'm curious what these corrupt uniparty would talk about once Trump leaves office in 28. Nothing but good things happen from his term. Well, the grievance people, they're going to make a lot of money and they'll just say everything Trump does is ending America and they'll sell, more whatever they're selling over there. And Neoe, what's up, Neoe? Bringing in 5 new membos. Pa from EP, Cecilia M, JJ, Call Me Legend is here, and Rome 13, all coming in the house courtesy of Neoe. And so thank you, my friends, for sending those amazing donos in. I very much appreciate them. You keep this show happening and you make it all possible. And so let's say hello to our friends on the X platform before we wrap it up and go over to our members only after party to debrief for a few minutes over there. We got some nice comments in the house. Snarky Retiree is here. Says Fanny looks like the Wicked Witch of the West. Miss Brian Cartwright's here. Snarky Retiree's here. Lisa says the problem is that afterwards the judge said that he was found guilty of R. well, that's not what the jury said. Here's one from Esther Shugart says, I think another reason Fani put Wade in that position was because any other lawyer running this RICO case would see the criminality and call Fani out for it. So Esther's there. Raven Madness is there. JB's there. What's up, George? Dark Side Digital says, narrowly tailored. Didn't Jack gobble up everyone who liked everything? That's not very narrow. It seems like a Fourth Amendment violation. I think you're right about that, Dark Side. And Danny McWilliam is in the house as well. And so, my friends, that's us over at Rob Govea ESQ on the X platform. And if you want to follow us and retweet us and follow other watchers out there, that's the place to do it so that you can support them and like their stuff and they can like your stuff. We're building a community out there, my friends. And so that is it for us on the day. We are going over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com for our members only after party to hang out for a few minutes. Vienticus Prime, thank you for modding down the fort for us today and clipping away for us along with our friend Zach Nichols doing some serious clipping for us, Zach. Thank you today for that. We got Just Cause, K Bean in the house who clips for us this morning, Playing Hooky, Ronnie Cole, our friend Zulu, Beyond Geo, Zach Nichols again, John Allen, Janik909, Dog Digger, and Donut Mind Me in the house. Of course, our Meme Smiths and the Magic Tricker, Geegum Geegum, Sleepy Dog Lee, and our friend Nathan N810. My friends, that is it for us on the day. We are going to be back here tomorrow. Tomorrow is going to be day 3 of the E. Jean Carroll trial. And we hope to see you right back here tomorrow so that together, with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night, my friends. Sleep very well. See you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.